Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something foundational in biology, something that's been, well, textbook knowledge for ages.
Yeah, we're talking about how our bodies handle fat, store it, release it for energy.
Exactly. And there's this pretty startling discovery that means we basically have to rethink a huge chunk of that understanding.
It's centered on research from the University of Toulouse in France, looking really closely at one specific enzyme, hormone-sensitive lipase,
And it's
HSL,
HSL, right?
known since the 60s.
Yep. But what's emerging now, based on the sources we're looking at, is this kind of dual role for HSL. It connects seemingly opposite conditions. We're talking obesity and paradoxically severe fat loss.
So our mission today is to unpack this research, led by Professor Dominique Langen's team primarily, and figure out what this newly found role for HSL, specifically in the cell nucleus, actually means.
And why it matters. I mean, it's potentially critical for literally billions of people worldwide dealing with weight-related health issues. Okay, so let's start with the basics, the established picture. What are we talking about when we talk about fat cells?
Right, adipocytes,
Ah,
fat cells. They're not just passive storage blobs, they're super dynamic, crucial for managing our body's energy.
they're like the body's energy bank account, storing fat triglycerides inside these things called lipid droplets.
Exactly. And when your body needs fuel, say you're fasting or maybe working out hard.
Those reserves need to be accessed, mobilized.
Correct. And for, 60 years now, HSL has been seen as the main switch for that, the gatekeeper enzyme.
So hormones like adrenaline, maybe from stress or fasting, they hit the fat cell.
And HL gets activated.
Yeah.
It then scoots over to the surface of that lipid droplet, starts breaking down the stored fat into fatty acids.
Which then get released to fuel everything else.
And that pretty much was the whole story. Tidy.
It's a neat model, makes total sense.
Yeah.
HSL breaks down fat, releases energy.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting, where the paradox comes in.
Well, based on that model, the assumption is simple, right? If HSL is your fat breakdown crew,
Then getting rid of HSL should stop fat breakdown.
meaning fat should build up, you'd expect obesity.
Logically, yes. But researchers started seeing the complete opposite. In mice, and also in humans with specific gene mutations that effectively knock out HSL.
They don't get fat. Instead, they lose fat tissue, like
We
drastically.
develop something called lipodystrophy.
Exactly, lipodystrophy. It's a severe condition where you have this massive reduction in working fat tissue. The body just loses its ability to store fat properly.
Hang on, losing the ability to store fat, isn't that usually considered, a good thing? Why is lipodystrophy a disease?
Ah, that's such a key point for you, the listener, to grasp.
Yeah.
Fat tissue isn't just padding, it's a vital organ. If you lose that storage capacity, like in lipodystrophy, any fat you eat or make internally has nowhere safe to go.
So it just spills over.
It spills over, yeah, into places it shouldn't be: liver, muscles, even the heart. We call that ectopic fat, and that causes huge problems. Severe insulin resistance, diabetes, heart disease.
Okay, wow. So you've got obesity on one side, too much fat, often unhealthy fat, and lipodystrophy on the other, almost no fat, but equally unhealthy outcomes.
And the link, bizarrely, seems to be this one enzyme, HSL. How can lacking it cause such different problems?
That's the puzzle the Toulouse team, Langen's group, really zeroed in on.
They realize that even though obesity and lipodystrophy look like polar opposites, they actually share something critical underneath:
Which is?
adipocyte dysfunction. The fat cells themselves become unhealthy. It doesn't matter if they're overfilled or practically empty, they're not working right. And that failure screws up metabolism and leads to similar kinds of health risks down the line.
So the question became, what else is HSL doing? If it's not just breaking down fat on the droplet, what function could explain this link to overall cell health and this lipodystrophy paradox?
And that's when they made the breakthrough finding. After
Yeah.
all these decades,
Yeah.
they found HSL somewhere totally unexpected within the fat cell,
Where?
inside the cell's nucleus.
Whoa. Okay, pause. HSL, the fat breakdown enzyme, in the nucleus. The cell's command center with all the DNA. I mean, proteins end up in the nucleus all the time, but for this specific enzyme. Why is that such a big deal?
It's huge because HSL's entire known function, its whole identity, was tied to physically interacting with fat on the lipid droplet,
Right.
finding it in the nucleus where there aren't really any fat droplets to break down. It's like finding a construction worker who only demolishes walls suddenly sitting in the CEO's office drafting company policy.
Okay, yeah, that paints a picture. So it must have a totally different job there, something unrelated to breaking down fat.
Precisely. A non-lipolytic function, as they call it.
The aha moment. So what is it doing in the nucleus then? What's the new job description?
Well, according to Jeremy Dufal, one of the co-authors in the nucleus, HSL interacts with a whole network of other proteins.
Okay.
It seems to be involved in regulating gene expression. Basically, it helps control the genetic programs that keep the adipocyte healthy and functioning correctly.
So HSL isn't just the demolition crew anymore.
Nope, it's got a dual role. On the lipid droplet, it's still doing demolition, breaking down fat when needed.
But in the nucleus?
It's more like the site manager, or maybe quality control. It's involved in maintaining the cell's long-term health, making sure the whole fat tissue system stays viable.
That clicks. Okay, so that explains the lipodystrophy paradox. If you don't have any HSL.
You don't just lose the demolition crew, you lose the quality control manager too. So the fat cells become unhealthy, they don't develop properly, they fail. That's why you get fat loss, not gain. It's cell failure.
Wow. And the study didn't just find it there. It figured out how the cell manages these two jobs, right? You can't have the manager doing demolition constantly.
Exactly. The regulation is really neat. They found that the same signal adrenaline that tells HSL to go break down fat
The mobilization signal?
also actively encourages HSL to leave the nucleus.
Okay. So during fasting, for instance, adrenaline says, hey, HSL, stop managing for a bit. We need energy release NW.
Right. Get out of the nucleus and onto the droplet. It's a temporary trade-off. Mobilization takes priority over nuclear maintenance for a short period.
That makes physiological sense.
But the problems start when that balance gets messed up long-term, which brings us to the obesity connection.
Yeah, the source material mentioned a really key finding here. In obese mice, they found the amount of HSL in the nucleus was way higher.
Increased, yeah. Which is counterintuitive at first glance.
Right. If nuclear HSL is about keeping cells healthy, why would more of it show up in an unhealthy state like obesity?
That's the million-dollar question. It suggests the issue isn't just the amount of nuclear HSL, but maybe its function there, or its ability to get out when needed.
So perhaps in obesity, the cell is desperately trying to signal for maintenance by packing HSL into the nucleus.
But maybe that HSL is stuck there. Or maybe the signals telling it to leave for fat breakdown are somehow blocked or ignored because of the chronic stress of obesity.
So the maintenance crew is in the office, but they can't get out to the site when the alarm bells for energy release are ringing.
That fits the picture. It could be a sign of profound signaling breakdown within the fat cell. The cell's trying to cope, but the system is overwhelmed and dysfunctional.
It really changes how you think about obesity. It's not just about having too much storage. It's about the storage units themselves, the adipocytes, becoming fundamentally unhealthy and unable to manage energy properly.
And that's Professor Langen's big takeaway, the synthesis. This nuclear role for HSL finally gives us a molecular handle on why HSL deficiency causes lipodystrophy. It's fat cell failure.
And crucially,
It opens up totally new ways to think about why fat tissue goes wrong in obesity and related metabolic diseases.
the impact here could be massive. We're talking, what, over 2.5 billion people affected by overweight and obesity globally?
Yeah, and the numbers are staggering. This isn't just cosmetic. It's driving epidemics of type 2 diabetes, heart disease.
So understanding HSL not just as a fat burner, but as this nuclear regulator of fat cell health, that's a big shift.
It moves us beyond just thinking about shrinking fat cells. It points towards fixing the underlying cellular health, the dysfunction. It's about restoring quality, not just reducing quantity.
So to recap, HSL, the enzyme we thought we knew for 60 years as just the fat release switch on the lipid droplet,
Turns out to have this second critical job inside the nucleus, maintaining the health and proper function of the fat cell itself.
and it dynamically moves between these two roles to balance short-term energy needs with long-term cell viability.
Right. It's a much more complex and honestly elegant picture than we had before.
So what's the final thought for our listeners to chew on here based on this research?
Well, we know nuclear HSL is increased in obese mice, and that seems linked to dysfunction. The big question this raises for the future is, could we therapeutically target this?
How so?
Like, could we develop ways to influence HSL's movement, maybe help it get out of the nucleus more effectively when fat needs to be mobilized in obese states? Or perhaps modulate its activity within the nucleus to restore proper maintenance functions?
So intervening in that shuttling process, or its nuclear role, could potentially be a way to tackle the root cause, the adipocyte dysfunction that drives obesity and metabolic disease.
Exactly. It's about restoring the health of the fat cell itself. That's the new frontier this discovery points towards. It's not just about energy balance anymore. It's about cellular health.